Sausage.
Hello, everyone. This is the Backlog, the podcast where I, Mark Kuznez, tries to make a dent in their backlog one game at a time. This episode is all about Armed and Dangerous, a game that's been sitting on my hard drive for years now, mocking me every time I look at my Xbox library and see it sitting at the very top of my alphabetically ordered collection of downloaded games, saying, looks like someone's still a little too scared to get dangerous, eh? Well, Armed and Dangerous, I'll show you who's dangerous. Anyway, this is Armed and Dangerous. Armed and Dangerous is a third-person shooter with a focus on humor that originally came out on PC and the original Xbox and is playable today on modern Xbox platforms thanks to backward compatibility, so it's technically playable on the Xbox One and the Xbox One. I played it on Series X, not to be confused with the Series 10.
Get out.
All I knew about Armed and Dangerous before I started playing it was that it was a third-person shooter, was supposedly very funny, and had creative weapons like the land shark gun, a gun that shoots a shark into the ground which then goes around chopping up this baddie and that baddie before filling its tum-tum enough to be done. And yes, I know that humor was dumb after all. I am 1-1, but on the topic of humor, even though I clearly don't know a damn thing about it, Armed and Dangerous has some decent jokes throughout its relatively short campaign. It took me a little over 5 hours to beat the game, with cutscenes taking up an hour of that playtime, but overall, most of the humor falls flat thanks to a throw everything at the wall and see what sticks approach. Most of the time, and since it's always joke time, it usually feels like a bunch of random nonsense that I'm supposed to laugh at because it's random and nonsense. While that kind of approach and humor can work for me sometimes, the success rate is so variable that it's anyone's guess if I'm going to laugh or blankly stare at the screen, and in the case of Armed and Dangerous, I did more staring than laughing. That said, I do still think it managed to be funny more often than most games, because most games that try to be funny are really bad at it, and Armed and Dangerous is only kind of bad at it. Backhanded compliment? Sure, but a compliment is still a compliment. What I can't compliment, however, is the gameplay and game design, which at its very best is just fine. When it comes to the shooting, it feels okay and seems to have a pretty generous aim assist when using the machine gun, but to make up for that, there are plenty of times when aiming down the sights leads to nothing, as having an enemy in the middle of your crosshairs doesn't guarantee a hit. This can be due to part of the environment being in your way, which the game can be very finicky about, but there are also plenty of times when it doesn't work for no reason other than
I don't know.
But as annoying as the shooting can be at times, the real problem of Armed and Dangerous is its design. In order to keep things challenging, instead of creating interesting levels or utilizing smart enemy AI, the developers decided to use the same approach to game design that the writers used to the humor. Just throw everything at the wall. In other words, the way Armed and Dangerous keeps things challenging is by throwing hordes and hordes of enemies at you at all times. It's manageable early on, but quickly grows more and more annoying the longer the game goes on. You do sometimes have a few AI teammates to help out, but they're as dumb as the enemies and don't know how to pick up a health pack to literally save their life. And once they're dead, they're dead. Making matters worse, the only way to get a checkpoint is by visiting a pub during a level. Pubs give you the ability to change weapons while also refilling your health and ammo for a few visits, as well as creating a new save point to load from. The number of times I had to completely restart a level because I was being constantly bombarded with enemies and unlucky enough to have none of them drop a health pack is in the double digits. I pondered whether I should even bother finishing the game more than a few times because of this. In addition to normal levels of shooting a lot of baddies, returning hostages home while shooting a lot of baddies, protecting villages while shooting a lot of baddies, and destroying specific buildings and or mechs while shooting a lot of baddies, there are also a handful of turret levels that are incredibly boring and ugly to look at, where you can sometimes see that in the distance, the incoming army is nothing more than a bunch of repeated silhouettes moving towards you without a frame of animation. These levels are always bad and far too frequent. The game even had the gall to end with one. Speaking of ugly, the game looks fine for its age. But the cutscenes do not, featuring a range of horrifying images from Beast Wars S to what the fuck is wrong with your hands, bro? That said, there was one time where I thought the game looked quite good. During one of the later levels, which takes place during a thunderstorm, if you look up at the sky, the clouds look rather striking and lovely. Sure, it's just one static image of clouds with two opposing images of clouds moving in different directions on top, but it works and I liked looking at it. But outside of that level, I found the visuals rather bland and generic. Also, the expectations of creative weaponry was all a lie because the Landshark gun is the only gun that isn't just a traditional gun. I can't say I was excited to play Armed and Dangerous, but it is a game I've been meaning to play for a very long time and I'm glad I finally checked that box. Do I think I should have bothered finishing it? Not really. There was no great spectacle in the end, and all I did was grow more and more frustrated the more and more I played, but since I knew it was a short game, I figured, what the hell? And that became a hell of my own making. A hell I'd recommend avoiding if you can. But that is it, and that is all, and that will do it for this here episode of Attack the Backlog. Once again, I am Marcus Nez. Y'all can find me pretty much everywhere at PX Sausage. If you enjoyed this here show or any of the stuff I do and what have you, you can support me and my nonsense over at patreon.com/PXS. In addition to the Patreon, you can get links to the site, the YouTube, the Discord, and so much more over at pxsausage.com. That is it. That is all. As always, thank you for watching or listening. I hope you enjoyed this here episode, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. But for now, adios, arrivederci, bye!